Have you got your SuperCoach trades locked in for the week just yet? For the first time, for the majority of teams, we'll finally get to see some price movements, both the increases and the decreases. And it's really the week to make those correctional trades, to fix up the mid prices that have been underwhelming, to jump on the cash cows that you've missed. And really, that is the vital priority this week. While we don't want failed premiums and guys that are misfiring at different levels, it really is the cash generators, the money makers that you have to get right in SuperCoach early to accelerate your team. But who are the critical guys to get? I'm going to look at 6 players that I think you need to have in your SuperCoach side. Now, what I'm not going to do is look at anyone over the percentage ownership of 50%. If you're over that, I'm going to make the presumption you've probably got them. So a Levi Ashcroft, a Sam Davidson, you're not going to see them on this list. But here are 6 guys I think you need to make sure you prioritize as your SuperCoach trade targets this week. Number 1, Nathan O'Driscoll. No, this is not a Simpsons episode where I'm Waylon Smithers and Minnie Monk's holding a gun to my back, letting me know that I have to put Noddy at the top. It's not that at all. He's just genuinely that good. Under $200,000 as a price point, going at 90s and a negative break even that's amongst the best in SuperCoach. The fact that only 1 in 3 coaches have their hands on Noddy is a little alarming to me because, like I said at the top of this episode, nailing these guys is critical, not just for on-field scoring to protect you from, well, the likes of an O'Sullivan or Camporelli are giving you 30s, 40s, and 50s. These guys are not only outperforming that by 40, 50 points, but they're also generating, or will generate after this price movement from this match, unbelievable bank. So to me, Nathan O'Driscoll to me is the number 1 priority of players owned under 50%, that if you do not have him, this is the number 1 correctional trade you need to make. Even without playing as a centre bounce mid on this weekend just gone, he was still electric. He's their best ball user by foot. And that's even with a Hayden Young in the side, and a matchup against West Coast. It really does loom as a favourable opportunity for him to really get that price movement really accelerated even further in SuperCoach. For me, Noddy, number 1 priority. Not too far behind it with a similar negative break even, albeit around about 40,000 cheaper, is a Xavier Lindsay. 158,500. Again, going in that low 80s average and doing it in different styles and ways. When you look at both the matchup against North Melbourne and the matchup against the Giants, he's finding ways to score that are really unique and different. Matches against the Gold Coast Suns are relatively favourable for wingmen. They don't really have anything elite on the outside from a transition ball movement perspective through the mids. So I could see Xavier really popping a pretty favourable score for us this week as well. But an unbelievable negative break even. And again, even more damning on us as a community that we've missed the mark on this guy. 16% ownership is just mind-boggling to me, a guy of his caliber and pedigree. I know a lot of people were bullish on a Harvey Langford, but if you're a Langford owner, you should have just parachuted across into Lindsay. If you don't own Noddy, that's your fix-up number 1. And it's fixing up guys like a Peatling if it hasn't popped, a Hollins if it hasn't popped. Making sure you fix this up, getting an O'Sullivan, as fine as he is. I'm not saying you have to trade O'Sullivan out, but rather, if the choice and the only way to get to a Lindsay or a Noddy is O'Sullivan, sorry, Finn, time for you to go. Who's the third priority for me? This one I didn't see coming at the start of the year, but a combination of price point, unbelievable ownership, great break even, and seems to be dodging the vest at the moment. Things I didn't expect. But Jack Henderson from the Demons is one of only a handful of 5-figure players at 99,100, but going at an average of 63. This is awesome for us because, again, with the lower price point comes a lower score required to require a higher cash acceleration movement through the break evens. And so going 60s at a player at Lindsay or a Driscoll's price, you're like, yeah, that's good, that's fine. But at this price point, 60s is really popping. It's why he's got such an unbelievable break even. If he can give us another 3 or 4 more weeks in this range, he will make you some serious bank. And on top of that too, with him being at this 99k price point, it gives you a nice easy outlet if you're looking to do something a little bit different. Again, not saying you should trade out of a Camperelli, but using him as an illustrative point, it's almost $15,000-$20,000 made just in that space, let alone if you're looking towards the top of the tree of the O'Sullivans, the Laylas, if you're really wanting to get brutal. To me, third priority of trade this week is a Henderson. Again, not saying get Henderson for O'Sullivan or for Layla. I'm just saying this guy's going to make some significant more money based on his lower price point, and as a result, an easier attainable break even with a comparable scoring pedigree of what these guys have shown at the AFL level so far. For me, if you've got these two first and you don't have Hendo, to me, he's an absolute critical trade-in option. Mitch Knevitt's my fourth best guy. An average of 70 at under 150,000. He really just makes my cutoff threshold at 47%. Not as vital to me as the other guys. A break even of negative 56 is still more than favourable. And with so much injuries to this Geelong midfield and a desire to turn the list over, it does look like he's going to be one of the primary options through there because he offers something defensively and at clearance. I do quite like him as an option, but would I prioritise him? Well, again, this is the whole premise of the order. Lindsay, Noddy, Henderson, to me, are all more critical to get because of either better scoring component and or more favourable break-evens and, in a Hendo's case, a lower threshold of what it makes to get there. So I think he's doing fine. He's not a critical play, but I think he's a pretty darn good one. And of all the mid-cash cow rooks that you probably don't have your hands on, he's the most highly owned, but probably the least critical to find a way if you are finding yourself as one of those 53% that don't own him. Hey, last two I'm going to give you before I wrap up this episode. Rapid fire, going to try to do this for you every single week in SuperCoach T, who to me would be the primary trade targets right now. It's going to be clearly focused on the money makers. But as we get into upgrade season, we will start to venture into some other names. Connor O'Sullivan, for me, must be talked about. The Geelong defender is probably the more fieldable of all of our sub-150 defenders. So better than Trainer, better than Reed. You know, Prize in that price ecosystem as well. But 14% ownership is unbelievably low. And he's been scoring okay even before Tom Stewart's injury. Yes, it's a one-game sample size, and it was in a bulldozing performance against the Dockers. But regardless, it does seem to be like he's found himself at home here. And we just need 4 or 5 more weeks. Turn that price and away we go. To me, this is a critical option to consider this week, knowing that we will have a bias coming, just telegraphing this one for you, in a week's time. But what O'Sullivan gives you the outlet option for this week for illustration point is a real easy outlet from a Harry Perryman if you wish to go down. Again, you might have Noddy, Lindsay, Ashcroft, Knevitt, all these guys in a Henderson, and you're like, well, I've got a failed mid-pricer in a Peatling, in a Hollands in my midfield. I actually want to take them up to a mid-pricer that's popping or a premium that I've loved, a Jordan Dawson type that for whatever reason I wanted to start but didn't, fell out of it, couldn't do it. Now, O'Sullivan gives you the outlet to go Perryman down and off you go. It's not worth it, in my opinion, to sideways from a Trainer, a Reed, or a Pryor, unless one of them get not named this week. But even then, I'd probably consider still holding, knowing I've got a bias coming in 7 days' time. But to me, if you need to access the money this week of Perryman on top of another, O'Sullivan feels like probably the easiest avenue to get there. And again, really lowly owned at 14%. And then the last guy, got to give you a forward option that sits through there. I did consider a Max Hall, but I think I like the job security and the role a little bit better for SuperCoach of an Elijah Hewitt. He made my 50 most relevant at the start of the year for a reason. An average in the mid-50s. He's not exactly knocking the world apart with his moves and a break even at 41. Again, not exactly knocking it down. But to me, it does look like he's building week on week. He had an interrupted preseason. There were some moments where I saw that explosiveness, that power through the midfield, and some shots on goal that normally I would have expected a player of his ilk to be able to convert. So I feel like he's building nicely at the moment for the Eagles and for super coaches again. Whether you're wanting to drop out of a Sanders, whether you're wanting to fix up a Garcia, or just create a dual position link in your midfield or something at the flex. He's not everybody's team that needs it, but he is an outlet for especially the Sanders and Garcia picks that have not worked if you're already a Davidson owner. I know some might consider Max Hall as a prospect through there, but just ask any Isaac Kako or Joe Berry owners. These small forwards, as unbelievable to watch as they are, they desperately require goals and or tackles combined to really boost the scoring. Elijah's playing through that midfield a little bit. They are using his power and dynamic movement to, I think, reasonable effects, and he should only improve. Man, if he pops a 70 or an 80 this week against Fremantle, really, that is critical movement that we could see from his price. So if you need a forward or you want something with a bit of DPP, I wouldn't mind him. He's probably the forward that I'd go after. Again, remembering, if you've got an ownership of over 50%, just not going to consider you in this episode because the premise is you have them. So your Ashcroft, Davidsons, they're just not in there. So those are my 6. Those are the players I'd encourage you to make as your trade target priorities in SuperCoach. But if you're watching this on YouTube, comment below. Let me know, what are your trades this week? And are you hitting one of your valuable boosts or not? I'd love to see those trades. Can't wait to see what you're going to share with me. If you're listening to this as an audio podcast and you haven't subscribed and given us a 5-star rating, it takes you 2 seconds to do that, and it makes a huge impact for us. We'll be back again real soon. The strategy sessions are already available for you on this channel as well to help you make some critical decisions for your SuperCoach side this week. And we'll be back again real soon talking all things SuperCoach and helping you make your team even better in 2025.